A horrific terror attack in Poonch comes the day that Bilawal Bhutto confirms his attendance at the SCO summit in India in Goa. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo story. This disturbing image from a terror attack in Poonch has shocked the nation. 5 soldiers have lost their lives in the line of duty. Grenades and bullets were hurled at the army vehicle that then caught fire. One soldier has been grievously injured and has been evacuated to Rajouri. As the army mourns its own, the timing is raising questions. Bilawal Bhutto just confirmed his attendance at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meet of foreign ministers to be held in Goa in the first week of May. India is chairing the SCO, it's a 9 member grouping, and there are those who are now joining the dots on the timing. In fact, a veteran police officer from Kashmir has even said that Bilawal Bhutto's invite for this summit should be withdrawn. Terror attacks in Jammu and Kashmir have, in fact, gone down. But this high voltage attack, coming as it does on the same day as Mr. Bhutto confirms his attendance, is raising, as I said, all manners of doubts, questions, and challenges on how to handle this SCO summit that is taking place in the shadow of this attack, but also has another adversary who has been invited, and that adversary is China. And all of us know the nexus between China and Pakistan. Let us introduce our guests on the program today as we try and make sense of what should or could happen next. Joining us on the program is military veteran, former General Officer Commanding of the 15th Corps, General Hasnain. Always a pleasure, sir. Also joining us is SP Vaid, the veteran police officer I referenced, the former Director General of Police of Jammu and Kashmir, whose tweet said Bilawal Bhutto should no longer be welcomed in the light of this attack that has taken place. Also joining us is senior diplomat, veteran diplomat, Ambassador Dilip Sinha. Welcome to the program, sir. And also joining us is strategic affairs analyst and commentator, Dr. Kartha. It's great to see all of you. Let me start with you, SP Vaid. You said Mr. Bhutto should no longer be welcomed, and I understand the sentiment. I appreciate the sentiment. I'm sure many Indians feel as you do. Many of the images from that horrific terror attack are in fact too gruesome to be broadcast. And for those of us who have seen them in the uncensored version, I can tell you that it does make your blood boil. So I understand what you're saying. But equally, having long chronicled India Pakistan relations, I also know that every time there's about to be some sort of diplomatic meeting, a terror attack usually takes place. And there are also terrorists who do not want this dialogue to take place. It is important to underline that a Jaish Mohammed affiliate has taken responsibility for this attack. I want you to explain why you believe that Mr. Bhutto should no longer be welcomed in the light of this attack.
Thank you, Barkha, for giving me this opportunity. My take is, as a host country, India, particularly being not only host and holding the presidency of SCO, is mandatorily has to invite all the members and participants. But I personally feel Mr. Bhutto, the external affairs minister, may not be even knowing what establishment is doing. Actually, all this is controlled by, we all know, by the establishment, and many of their politicians even may not be knowing what is their next move. But I think we should see this as one country, and our message should be very, very clear. You can't have this dubious policy of cross-border terrorism, of jihad, of bleed India by 1,000 cuts, and then share stage with us. We refuse to share stage with you. A very strong message must go to Pakistan. I know China is equal partner in this.
Yes.
We all know about this. In fact, if you come to G20, both China and Pakistan objected, and Pakistan has been miffed off and has been going around all over the world shouting against holding of G20 in Kashmir, and similarly in China did. And I think the narrative that things after 370 have improved in Kashmir, which is a fact also to a very large extent. Things did have shown many, if you see by all parameters in the valley, have improved. Though last 2 years, I see increasing focus on disturbing Jammu region. So
Yes.
Pakistan's concerted effort to pursue this policy, there is no change of heart in the establishment who are actually the people who call the shots. And we must send a very clear message. We will not deal with you if you pursue this policy. We will not share stage with you. And
Okay. And you believe, therefore, that invite should be withdrawn?
I personally, he is not welcome. He should not be welcome in India.
Ambassador Sinha, this is a diplomat's worst nightmare. And diplomats who handle India and Pakistan have been in this situation several times before. In fact, every time, right from the Chitti Singhpura massacre, every time there is some sort of global diplomatic activity. And at that time, it was Clinton coming to India. I remember it well. This is a pattern. For any of us who studied Kashmir in India, Pakistan, this is the pattern. But Mr. Vaid is right. There are lives here. There is one of the soldiers who has left behind a 1.5-year-old daughter and a pregnant wife. And I'll play those images in a moment. But there you can see those images. But chairing the SCO, does India have the option to selectively call those it would prefer and withdraw an invite? What do you make of the timing? Bhutto confirms his attendance. The terror attack takes place. A Jaish affiliate claims responsibility. These cannot be unconnected developments. Ambassador Sinha.
Barkha, the issue here is the problem with the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which we know is a China-led organization and a springboard for Chinese international order. Now, we had joined this organization about 6 years ago in the expectation that Pakistan would give us transit under terms of the SCO, and we would have access to Central Asian countries. Now, Pakistan has steadfastly refused to honor its commitments either in the SCO or in SAFTA or in SARC or any other organization that we are part of to give us transit. Now, this is within the SCO now, we are falling in the company of countries, as you said, with the access between China and Pakistan, where we will constantly have these dilemmas coming up. With Pakistan, of course, it becomes very, very immediate and very abject because of the terror factor. But there are other problems as well. In the West, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is being looked upon as a Chinese security organization. And India is the odd country out because it's an organization where you have a bunch of dictators, and we are the only democracy in this organization. So we will face these dilemmas at each stage in this organization, now that we have become part of it. And this dilemma of inviting or not inviting Bilawal Bhutto is one of these dilemmas. It is a serious matter. Had it been a bilateral visit, I'm sure we would have cancelled it because of this attack. But because we are obliged under the SCO, and it's an obligation that we have taken on because we joined this Chinese organization, well, we have to face the consequences of that.
So you're basically you're suggesting that the membership of this grouping is not really yielding any advantage to us.
It has not yielded any advantage to us, and at the same time, it has put us in all kinds of difficult situations. We, on the one hand, want to be a non-aligned country. We want to maintain our strategic independence. At the same time, we are part of an organization which all over the world is being seen as a Chinese-led organization. So we have to make up our mind what we want to do with our foreign policy and where we want to be seen.
Do you believe, briefly, because I want to go to General Hasnain and Dr. Kartha, do you believe that the point that Mr. Vaid is making, is it possible for the country, the host country chairing the SCO to withdraw an invite? Is it possible?
Well, I'm not sure because we have in the past actually had a counter-terrorism operation, joint operation with Pakistan, where we had invited their troops and we had a joint anti-terror operation. So we have done worse things in the past than having a person like Bilawal, who's really an inconsequential person. He's a regional leader in Pakistan. And very soon, if elections are held in Pakistan, he'll no longer be in office. So this really is a side issue. There are bigger, far more serious issues involved with our partnership, membership of the SCO.
Okay, thank you for flagging that. I want to go to General Hasnain, but before that, sir, if you'll allow me, I just want to take a glance at the terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir, basis what the government has said in Parliament. So, if we can bring up the numbers, actually, since 2018, we have seen incidents of terrorism decline. There's been a consistent decline. And when we sort of extend this and we move to the next slide and look at the number of military personnel we have lost, there too, from 2018 to now, there has been a decline. That said, every life lost is one life too many. So that's the first point, but I just wanted to bring this broader context. The other thing, General Hasnain, and you will appreciate this, is when you see the spirit of the families of these five soldiers who have lost their lives, and I want to go back to the images of the women who are grieving one of the soldiers. As I said, there is a 1.5-year-old baby and there is a pregnant wife that Sepoy Harkrishan Singh from Punjab leaves behind. But General Hasnain, before I come to you, this Sepoy's father also served in the army. And just take a look at how he's reacting to what's happened to his son. I just want to play that out to you because I know you'll appreciate it. And then I'll come to you. This is Sepoy Harkrishan Singh's father, who also served in the army, on losing his son.
ਮੇਰਾ ਸੰਦੇਸ਼ਾ ਇਹ ਆ ਸਾਰੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਡਾ ਬੱਚਾ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਉਗਰਵਾਦੀਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਲੋਹਾ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਨੇ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਾਣ ਹੈ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚੇ 'ਤੇ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਫਰਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਨਿਭਾਉਂਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ। ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਆਪਣੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਕੌਮ ਦੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹਿਣ ਤੇ ਦੂਜਾ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਤੋਂ ਮਾੜੇ ਕੰਮਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਚ ਕੇ ਰਹਿਣ, ਨਸ਼ਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਬਚ ਕੇ ਰਹਿਣ। ਬਸ ਮੇਰਾ ਇਹ ਸੰਦੇਸ਼।
My message to the country, General Hasnain, he says, is this is just for those who may not understand Punjabi, that he's proud of the sacrifice of his son. His son died taking on terrorists. He urges all young people to do the same and not get distracted by things like drugs. He's speaking, of course, in the Punjab context. It is absolutely stirring to hear a father who's lost his son hours ago speak like this. And it's very difficult then to explain to the public at large why Bilawal Bhutto is coming to India when the Jaish-e-Mohammed affiliate has claimed responsibility for this attack. General Saab.
Thank you, Barkha. Thank you for inviting me for your show. And I take a cue from what you exactly said also, just a few minutes ago. You said every Jawan killed is one too many. Because this is not something, terrorism is not something in which the army should really be involved by itself. As it is, we have always believed in that. But the fact also is that I endorse every word which has been spoken by the DGP, former DGP Vaid, that nothing has changed as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. You see, you may be having lesser number of incidents, but the intention of Pakistan remains the same. To remain relevant, they will continue to come back and do these kind of actions. If this action is in sync with the visit of Bilawal Bhutto in the near future or something like that is not necessary, but the fact still remains that there is a deep state there which is wanting to hurt India and hurt it deeply. We have done nothing much about that and we are not capable of doing too much about it. I therefore feel that at a time such as this, when India's strategic confidence is on the rise, we should be speaking down to Pakistan, telling them very clearly enough is enough. And this is just not acceptable to us. Whether the Ministry of External Affairs can sort out, resolve this whole issue of the SCO, I do feel we need to remain members of the SCO. It's an important organization, particularly in view of what's happening in Ukraine also. We need to show our neutrality and be a part of two separate groupings. But this kind of an activity at the tactical operational level, trans line of control, terrorists coming in and firing at our vehicles, this is something just not acceptable at all. And to my mind, I endorse exactly what Vaid Sahab has said.
So you believe, General Hasnain, that the Pakistan foreign minister, even if he's coming for a multilateral conference at this point, which India happens to be the chair of and therefore is the host country, he should not be coming to India in the light of this attack. You believe that?
I believe that very strongly. And I say that again for the simple reason that today, this is not the India of 15 years ago or 20 years ago. This is an India which is strategically very confident. We can hold our own internationally, and we can tell the world that this kind of an action is just not acceptable. The world will need to take this much more seriously.
Dr. Tara Kartha, emotionally, I hear both what Mr. Vaid and General Saab are saying. But as Ambassador Sinha has explained to us, once a country is member of a multilateral group and is chairing it, this is the year that we chair it, I guess some hands are tied. Yet I think both General Saab and Vaid Saab are saying, untie those hands. Let's look at it for a moment just theoretically from a different perspective. Could it be that the terrorists, that Bilawal Bhutto has no say over a Jaish-e-Mohammed, that it is, of course, the deep state, and the terrorists are, in fact, warning the civilian establishment in Pakistan, don't go to India. Hum log keh rahe, please, you're not welcome. Ho sakta hai, given the patronage by the deep state of these terror groups, that they're also sending a signal to the civilian establishment. This new affiliate, shadowy new group, every few years, some new affiliate pops up. How do you see it, Dr. Kartha?
No, I think the fact that Bilawal said what he did at the UN, if you remember in December, the rubbish that he spoke at an international organization shows that Bilawal is very much a part of the deep state. So it's not that he's an innocent babe in the woods who's trying to bring good for his country. He's not. He's trying to align with the deep state. That's one. However, if we, like you said, if we were to stand aside and say, okay, he's the foreign minister of a country, and like I said, diplomatically, I'm not sure that you can disinvite someone from a multilateral forum. If that is true, in that case, we should also hark back to Nawaz Sharif when he was prime minister, but he genuinely led a hand out to India. And he says, every time I try and talk to India, there is a terrorist attack. And he asked this to his army generals. He says, why is this taking place? So that is fact number 2. Fact number 3 is that when we are talking of walking out of the SCO and saying we don't need this organization, I mean, I get where that's coming from. But most of your neighbors are part of the SCO. Maldives, in Sri Lanka, Nepal, can you afford to walk away? You can't. So these are the realities that you're dealing with. And we also know at various times past, not perhaps this time, there is a degree of, I won't say independence. Some of these terror groups tend to launch out when there's an opportunity attack. So if they get the thing, they will do it. But then if there is, so far there's been a firm line, and we have seen no firing at the LOC, that is continued. So it's a bit iffy.
Yeah. So therefore, but I'm glad you raised the very personal, disparaging words that the Pakistan foreign minister had used for the Indian prime minister that do not bear repetition, but we all remember them. The question is this, Dr. Kartha, given these complexities, that you don't know if terror groups are driving the deep state or the deep state is driving the terror groups, and where Mr. Bhutto fits in all of this, what are the options before the government, you think?
I think at the moment they'll probably ask Pakistan to, if they get sufficient proof. I mean, I think the NIA is also on the job. All assets have been thrown in. If you get sufficient data, you can ask the Pakistan state, here is the proof we have. Would you like to do something about it? I mean, I would love to disinvite Bilawal Bhutto, right? That would be totally the way to go. But in this, I think the government they've behaved in a very mature fashion in, calling on Nawaz Sharif right at the beginning. They've tried everything, and this is what we get. So at the moment, you would probably wait for proof and present it at the SU if you like, and say terrorism. You remember the last FN meeting where Jaishankar said zero tolerance to terrorism. Present the evidence.
Yeah.
It's not a bilateral thing. It's terrorism.
But I rather fear, Ambassador Sinha, given the state of affairs, we are not at a point of operational, bilateral sort of functionality right now between India and Pakistan. The SCO could prove, because Mr. Bhutto is not going to come here and be silent, I don't think. He's going to look to make some sort of inflammatory remark. This is my gut, I could be wrong. And given that this attack has taken place, it would go down quite badly. I mean, is this a risk worth taking, or is there no option, Ambassador Sinha?
I would feel that we should actually disinvite him and then let the organization take a view and let China take a view on it. And if they expel us, that would solve our problem. Because I feel that it's the membership of the SCO that will constantly present us with such dilemmas. It is not the first time that we are facing this dilemma. We have it'll come up again. Now, whether Bilawal Bhutto uses the platform in India, in Goa, to make anti-India statements, I'm sure he will. Even if he doesn't, if he makes conciliatory statements, it still doesn't help us, because if he makes conciliatory statements, then we'll have a few more terror attacks from the establishment. So in both situations, we lose. Either he attacks us and then goes back and claims that he's a great hero and he went to India and attacked India, or he makes conciliatory statements and goes back and then Imran Khan chews him up. So in both situations, we do not, our people get killed. We are facing a problem of terrorism coming from these organizations, from these deep state in Pakistan. And then you must remember that the SAARC summit has not taken place for all these years because we do not want to be sitting with Pakistan on the same platform. Pakistan was supposed to be the host of SAARC, and we got it postponed, and we have not gone there because in SAARC we have a certain degree of hold over the organization, but in the SCO we are just following China and feeling that we are helpless. So it's the membership of the organization that is tying our hands down, and so I would feel that we should disinvite him and then let us face the consequences in the SCO.
So what's very important is that all of you actually do believe there's agreement. Disinvite Bilawal Bhutto. Let's see what happens next. The disagreement among you is over the relevance of the SCO. Let me bring in General Hasnain and then I'll come to SP Vaid and Tara again. General Hasnain, go ahead.
See, Barkha, the reason why I said that India must continue its membership of the SCO is that it's just been about 2 to 3 years since we've become the full-time members as such. And we are still an emerging, what I would call a swing power, a swing state. Someone who's going to make a difference to the international order in one way or the other in the future. For us to put our eggs in one basket and go entirely the American way may not be entirely in our favor too. We must be seen to be equidistant for as long as possible and continue to play our cards. To do something as blatant as actually are looking for an exit from the SCO may not go down very, very well with the Russians, who we are also sort of looking to have a good relationship with. So I think at this time, particularly in the emerging world order today, an incident of this kind may not be used to push such a big strategic decision. But as far as Bilawal Bhutto is concerned, I continue to push the same, that the Ministry of External Affairs must find a way by which India's membership of the SCO continues and Bilawal Bhutto is not made welcome in India.
So let me bring in SP Vaid. Is that possible? Now you have two views here. One, that let us be expelled by the SCO. It's good riddance, Ambassador Sinha. General Hasnain saying, no, we can't be seen to be taking sides. We can't lean towards the Americans at this point. There are all kinds of dependencies, strategic dependencies also tied in with the Russians. But let's pick up this thread of, the argument, SP Vaid sir, that either way, with a government in Pakistan that is not fully in control of its foreign policy, no matter what Mr. Bhutto says, conciliatory or inflammatory, it doesn't actually impact what the terrorists will decide to do. Tara seems to believe that no, Bilawal is looking to align himself with the deep state, but we don't know what's going on because the deep state is also at war with itself right now in Pakistan. Mr. Vaid?
Yes.
It's confusing.
Yes, Barkha, it is confusing, but I would just add that in the presence of my illustrious co-panelists who know much more about SCO and the foreign policy than a mere person like a Sipahi, ground level Sipahi like me. But I personally feel I refuse to accept this Pakistan duplicity that there are, the deep state is independent, is different, the political class is different. They're all Katputlis in front of the deep state, and non-state actors are doing this. This is all bullshit. Nothing moves in Pakistan uh, without establishment. And I have not come across in my 35 years of career one terrorist during interrogation admitting that they have acted independent of establishment. I have not come across, and they control all. Well, at least this part I can say, the terrorism they control, and we must send a message to the establishment and not people like Bhutto. They are just Katputli in their hands. So I personally feel a very clear message must go to the establishment. We will not share stage with you if if you pursue this policy of hate against India, if you pursue this policy of breaking India, if you pursue this policy of cross-border terrorism and virtually covert war against India, we refuse to share stage with you.
Yeah. I want to bring in Dr. Kartha. You see, the question that might be asked is, why are we willing to share stage with the Chinese then? I concede that it is a different sort of conflict. I concede that, with the exception of Galwan, it is not as bloody a conflict, but in some ways it is a more insidious conflict. China has provoked in multiple ways. It is so-called renamed places in Arunachal, which are firmly in Indian territory. There is a neo-imperialist sort of dimension to China's economic strategic plans. China, in some ways, is a more insidious adversary. But we are sharing stage at this SCO with the Chinese. We have invited the Chinese foreign minister. There are those who may say, yes, of course, Pakistan's a problem. Why is China not as big, if not a bigger problem?
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. But I just want to correct one thing which I may have been misunderstood. I'm not talking of terrorists acting independently. I'm saying there is a certain time the target of opportunity presents itself and therefore they go for it. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying. They have
Yeah.
a complete ISI hand, there's no two ways.
Of course.
Number two, it's also a fact that in the ISI, in its counterterrorism operations, normally winds up eating half the money that is sanctioned. Therefore, it has its own, stuff going on. So that is a different issue. But your point is very good, Barkha. But by and large, in the what shall I say, in the laws of war, in what we say the international relations as we see it, conventional war is accepted. Then you understand that states do go to war with each other. They may be the biggest, what shall I say? I mean, China wants everything. Every single time it comes up with a new name and does all this rubbish, and you have to put up with it. Let's face it, it's a larger economy. All that, setting aside that, it is apparently not going in for terrorist activities. Apparently, we have some evidence that there
Well,
is.
it's blocked sanctions against the Lashkar and the Jaish, the Jamaat Dawa rather, multiple times at the UN.
No, even some disinformation channels are
Yes.
back in Beijing. So it's not that its hands are clean. But this is it's a particularly cowardly, horrible war. Terrorism is the worst. And I think General Hasnain will agree with me when I say when you force troops to fight, get into counterinsurgency, that is terrible for them. It's a terrible war. It's not what they're trained for. There is honor in dying in battle. But in
Yeah.
counter it's a terrible thing. So I think it's a bit apples and oranges. A little bit.
Okay, it's an interesting point. I want to take it to General Hasnain, and I think the idea of going to battle to fight for your flag, for your people, for your country is war, and our soldiers fight it valiantly. But I believe that what happens in Kashmir is no less of a war. It's just war by another name. The point that Dr. Kartha is making is the Chinese aren't doing that. They're occupying tracts of land, but they aren't pulling you into military conflict. Does that make it substantively different? And also another question, my producer reminds me that the last SAARC summit, this speaks to what Ambassador Sinha was saying, was held in 2014. We've successfully managed to push that. Should we at least say, in the light of this attack, we don't believe the SCO summit should be held? General Hasnain?
Yeah. Let me comment on the first part of your question first. This is I agree, while agreeing with Taraji completely in what she has said. Today's world, there is a gray zone between conventional war and hybrid war, so to say.
Yeah.
What we are seeing in Kashmir is a very typical example of hybrid, part conventional, part insurgency, terrorism, and things like that. With the Chinese, it's not conventional either. It is in the domain of gray. What happened in Galwan, for example, to my mind, Galwan was virtually an act of terror by the
Yeah.
Chinese side, but it was in the gray zone, I would say.
Yeah.
We haven't come down to this kind of a thing where you have a war of 1,000 cuts, the manner in which the Pakistani establishment has virtually declared its intent against India. The Chinese haven't done that. The Chinese play it much more subtly on this whole issue. We are also having a $125 billion trade with China, much of it in its favor, of course. What is our trade with Pakistan? Whatever trade, probably via Dubai, nothing else. It blocks all our movements and efforts to try and get into Central Asia, which we've always been looking for. So I think the treatment, looking at China and Pakistan, is something quite different. We can still afford to be with China in different multilateral platforms here and there, and must be seen to be there, because we are an important power. We must not sort of be seen to be absent
Cede.
from these kind of
We
organizations.
must not cede that space. We must
Yes,
not cede that space.
absolutely. But Pakistan is irrelevant. For that, Pakistan is completely irrelevant. And we should be able to convey a message as a bigger nation, larger nation, and as a nation which has been facing this for the last 33 years, 34 years. We must ensure that the message goes home very clearly to Pakistan.
Yeah.
And that is the
So-
reason why we
Yeah.
need to follow this, what we have been discussing so far.
So again, last word to you, Ambassador Sinha. In the light of the fact that the Modi government did not make an attempt at peace with Pakistan, whether it was inviting Nawaz Sharif to the swearing in of the Modi government the first time around, whether it was the Prime Minister lining up in Lahore to meet him, Satinder Lamba's recent book that looks at India-Pakistan relations under multiple prime ministers talks about a back channel being activated as recently. And it is recent in the life of India, Pakistan is 2017, despite the Pathankot attack. This is what Sati Lamba has argued in his book. Now, given that, as the cliche goes, you can't wish away your neighbors, and actually a sinking Pakistan would in the end damage India's interests, strategic interests, I mean, because you'd have more terrorists possibly flooding areas like Kashmir. How do we balance our own interest, but also not compromise on being tough on terrorism?
Well, the answer is very simple. If we seek to improve relations with Pakistan, as many of our prime ministers, including the current prime minister, have tried to do, but have come croppers in this, whether it is the prime ministers before him, as Mr. Ambassador Sati Lamba has pointed out, he's worked with 6 prime ministers. All of them tried to improve relations, and all of them came croppers. Manmohan Singh, his dialogue with Pakistan ended with the attack on Mumbai. Now, that is the end game of all such efforts, where we try to improve relations, and then the deep state comes back and kills all these efforts at tremendous expense to us in terms of human lives. So we have to decide what are we trying to improve relations with Pakistan for. If it's going to end up in more terrorist attacks, then it's perhaps best to just tell them, look, you stay away, we stay away. If the establishment in Pakistan, no matter how powerful it is, whether the political parties are part of it or not, is a side issue. As far as we are concerned, we have to treat Pakistan as one country. And that country is not willing to let relations with India improve at all. So why are we trying to do it? Let's stay as separate countries and
So
see
in
what
conclusion,
happens.
postpone the SCO summit or disinvite Bilawal Bhutto?
Well, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, we should disinvite him because of this attack. And then let's see what SCO does. It's a Chinese-led organization. China will decide what happens, and we'll see.
Very strong opinions expressed by all of you. It will be very, very interesting to see what the government does decide to do next. And much will also depend, I think, as someone mentioned, on the investigations into the terror attack that has taken place in Poonch. But by the way, you have a Jaish-e-Mohammed affiliate openly taking responsibility, and that reflects a certain impunity as well that does need to be called out. SP Vaid, thank you for starting this conversation, pointing out the dots between those two events, Mr. Bhutto's confirmation of attendance and that terror attack. Tara Kartha, Ambassador Sinha, General Hasnain, always a pleasure. To our audience, thank you very much. See you tomorrow. We started Mojo right here in this basement. Just 4 people, 4. And now we're about to hit our first 1 million subscribers. So this is to say thank you to all of you for your support, for your respect, and for your encouragement. We've always gone to where the story is. During the pandemic, when television's big anchors were hunkered down in their studios or at their homes, we hit the road. We traveled from Delhi to Kerala, covering 30,000 kilometers in a small car, reporting from inside ICUs and inside slum tenements. Whether it's flash floods or war zones, we've always put our boots on the ground. In fact, we're just back from Punjab, tailing the Khalistani fugitive Amritpal Singh. And through all of this, we have always put you, the people, first. In an age of partisan polarized media where most journalists are either chamcha ya morcha, we believe the story is sacred and the truth of the story is what matters. And now as we get ready for the next step, we need your help. Become a Mojo member and get first access to all our big interviews. Get a chance to ask our newsmakers questions. Get a chance to write and report for us for both our website and our channels. And also, interact with me and my colleagues directly through AMA sessions. Literally, ask me anything. Click on the join now right next to the subscribe button, and yes, also subscribe if you haven't yet, and become a Mojo member for just 159 rupees a month. Hope to see lots of you in our community. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.